There exists a place that no map has ever shown, a landscape more mysterious than the ocean, more infinite than the stars, a place that lives inside every human being. It's the hidden world within us, the unlit corridor of the mind where our deepest fears, desires, and memories quietly breathe unseen. We call ourselves human, as if we understand what that means. We build cities, create art, invent machines, and reach for the stars. Yet the greatest mystery we've ever faced still lies behind our own eyes. For centuries, we've tried to define ourselves through religion, philosophy, and science, each offering its own version of the truth. But beneath every theory, one truth whispers, we are divided. There's the person we show to the world, the confident, controlled, civilized self. And then there's the other one, hidden beneath the surface, the one that dreams of power, that hungers for love, that remembers pain. This unseen self is not our enemy, but our reflection. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung called it the shadow, the sum of everything within us that we refuse to face. Our suppressed emotions, forgotten memories, forbidden desires, the parts of our being that society, morality, and even our own fear have buried deep underground. But the shadow is not evil. It is simply the truth we deny, the chaos we conceal beneath the illusion of control. Every human being carries this shadow. It speaks in our thoughts, it shapes our choices, it hides behind our smiles. And sometimes it rises in anger, in envy, in regret, reminding us that no light can ever exist without darkness. The world outside mirrors this truth. The wars we fight, the injustice we create, the fear we spread. They are not born from the stars above us, but from the shadows within us. Yet, within that darkness also lies our greatest power, the ability to understand ourselves, to heal, to evolve. For only by confronting the shadow can we truly step into the light. You're watching the Wonder Lab, where we explore the hidden forces that shape humanity, the mysteries that science can't measure, and the truths that whisper from the depths of consciousness, because the greatest frontier is not outer space, it is the space within. And tonight, we enter the realm of the mind's most silent companion, the shadow within. Every story begins with light. A newborn enters the world pure, untouched by judgment, unshaped by expectation. A child doesn't yet know the difference between right and wrong, beautiful or ugly, acceptable or forbidden. They simply are. Their laughter, their curiosity, their anger, all flow like water, honest and unfiltered. In that state, they are whole. But the world they are born into does not welcome wholeness. It rewards certain emotions and rejects others. It praises obedience and punishes defiance. It loves the parts that are convenient and silences those that make it uncomfortable. So the child begins to learn, not from textbooks, but from glances, from tones, from silence. They learn that crying too much brings shame, that anger brings punishment, that vulnerability invites ridicule, that being too different brings isolation. And so, slowly, the great division begins. The child separates what is good from what is bad, what is acceptable from what must never be shown. They hide their fear, they suppress their sadness, they bury their rage, and in doing so, they start constructing the invisible twin of their personality, their shadow. Every time they say, "I'm fine," when they are not, a brick is added to the wall that separates them from themselves. Every time they are told, "Don't feel that way," their true self retreats a little deeper into the dark. The human shadow is not born evil. It is born innocent, out of the desperate need to be loved, to belong, to survive. It's the graveyard of everything we once were and still are, somewhere inside. As the years pass, this hidden self grows in silence. It collects the emotions we refuse to feel, the dreams we abandon, the words we swallow to keep the peace. We grow older. We build identities, careers, relationships. But somewhere behind the face we show to the world, our forgotten selves wait patiently, watching us play the roles we've been taught to perform. And then, one day, a crack appears. It might come as a sudden outburst of anger you didn't expect, a breakdown you can't explain, a decision that seems irrational even to you. That's when the shadow speaks, not to destroy you, but to remind you that it has always been there. The shadow is not your enemy. It's your mirror. It shows you what you've buried, not to shame you, but to set you free. Because everything you reject in yourself doesn't disappear. It only waits. And when it returns, it does so with the force of everything you've denied. This is how humanity becomes divided, not by nations or beliefs, but by the wars we wage within our own souls. The child becomes an adult. The laughter fades, the innocence fractures, and the world calls it maturity. But beneath that surface, beneath the rehearsed smiles and practiced calm, the echo of that buried child still whispers, "Remember me. I am you." The shadow begins here, not in evil, not in darkness, but in the moment we first learn to hide our truth in exchange for love. Every human being wears a mask. Some wear it proudly. Others forget they even have it on. But no one walks through life without one. The mask begins as protection. A small defense built in childhood designed to keep us safe from rejection. We learn to smile when we're sad, to stay silent when we want to scream, to pretend to be strong when we feel utterly fragile. Each lie, each performance, each moment of pretending polishes the surface of that mask. At first, it feels like armor. It gives us approval. It earns us love. It helps us fit into a world that demands perfection but fears authenticity. But what we don't realize is that the longer we wear it, the less we remember the face beneath. As we grow, our masks multiply. We wear one for our family, another for our friends, another for society. A professional mask to appear competent, a spiritual mask to appear pure, a social mask to seem happy. And when we're alone, the silence becomes deafening because we no longer know which one of these versions is real. The world loves our masks. It rewards them. It gives us jobs, admiration, even fame, not for who we are, but for who we pretend to be. And yet, deep inside, there's a quiet ache, a longing to just be, without performance, without disguise. We post smiles on screens while our minds scream in silence. We say I'm good when our hearts whisper, I'm lost. And as the performance continues, the distance between who we are and who we appear to be grows wider and wider until it becomes a chasm of loneliness. But the shadow never forgets. It watches us play these roles, the obedient child, the perfect partner, the strong leader, and it waits for the moment when the mask begins to crack. Because every mask, no matter how polished, eventually breaks. It breaks in heartbreak. It breaks in loss. It breaks in the quiet nights when you can no longer lie to yourself. In those moments, the shadow rises not to haunt you, but to remind you of the truth you abandoned, that your real strength was never in pretending to be flawless, but in daring to be human. The irony is that while we hide our flaws to be loved, people are drawn to our truth. They recognize something real, because deep down, they too are tired of pretending. The human mask is the greatest illusion ever built, a costume stitched from fear, guilt, and the hunger to belong. And yet, beneath that mask lives the one thing we've been searching for all along, our authentic self. But to meet that self, we must risk everything we've built, our image, our comfort, our control. because the truth cannot live where lies are worshipped. To remove the mask is not to lose yourself. It is to return to the one who was never lost. We are not our titles, our reputations, or our smiles. We are the consciousness that watches them all. And when the mask finally falls, the shadow does not disappear. It becomes light. There is a strange mirror in this world, a mirror that doesn't reflect our faces, but our souls. It is not made of glass, yet we see our truest reflection in it every single day, through the people around us. Human relationships are the most mysterious laboratory of the mind. Every encounter, every attraction, every hatred is not random, it is a reflection, because in the eyes of others we see the pieces of ourselves we've forgotten or denied. When someone's arrogance infuriates us, it may be because a part of us once wanted to be that bold. When we despise someone's weakness, it may be because it reminds us of our own fragility. When we're drawn to someone's light, it's often because it reflects a brilliance we've buried within. This is the secret language of the shadow. It hides in others so we can finally see it. But instead of understanding, we project. We point fingers. We judge. We say, "I could never be like them," without realizing that the very emotion burning inside us is proof that some part of us already is. Every hatred, every obsession, every envy is the shadow's way of speaking through the mirror of the world. Because what we refuse to accept in ourselves, we are destined to meet again and again, in the faces of others. Civilizations have built wars on this blindness. Nations have destroyed each other, believing that evil lies out there, in another race, another religion, another land. But history whispers a painful truth. Humanity is not destroyed by its enemies. It is destroyed by the parts of itself it refuses to see. The mirror never lies. It shows us exactly who we are, not as punishment, but as opportunity. Because the people who irritate us, challenge us, or break us are not obstacles. They are teachers. Every conflict is a reflection. Every enemy, a disguised lesson. Every heartbreak, a chance to meet yourself again. And yet, most of us keep breaking the mirror, angry at the reflection, blind to the message. We call it betrayal, injustice, fate, when all along it was our shadow trying to speak. Imagine if we listened. Imagine if, instead of fighting what we see in others, we asked ourselves, what part of me does this person reveal? That single question can turn conflict into clarity, hatred into healing, judgment into wisdom. The shadow does not only live within, it dances around us, wearing every face we meet. The world, after all, is not separate from the mind. It is a mirror of it, and when you finally stop running from your reflection, you begin to see something extraordinary, that every person you've ever loved, feared, envied, or despised was never against you. They were guiding you back to yourself. Every human being carries a battlefield inside them, a silent war that never ends, a war fought not with swords or guns, but with thoughts, emotions, and memories. It's the battle between who we are and who we believe we should be. Most people spend their entire lives trying to silence this war. They drown it in noise, in work, in distraction. They chase pleasure to forget their pain. They build careers, relationships, reputations, not always because they desire them, but because the silence inside feels unbearable. This is how the shadow hides, not in darkness, but in the illusion of control. The more we try to suppress what we don't want to feel, the stronger it becomes. Every fear we ignore grows teeth. Every emotion we suppress becomes poison. Every truth we bury becomes a ghost haunting our decisions. That's why people suddenly explode in anger, why they sabotage their own success, why they fall into addiction, why they hurt the ones they love. It's not evil. It's the shadow demanding to be seen. The human mind is like a pressure chamber. You can keep the lid closed for years, pretending that everything is fine. But deep within, the emotions you've denied are boiling, rising, waiting. And when the pressure becomes unbearable, the explosion comes, in tears, in rage, in despair. Some call it depression. Some call it burnout. Some call it a spiritual crisis. But in truth, it's the same phenomenon, the shadow breaking through the walls we built. We're taught to fight it, to resist, to suppress, to stay positive. But that only fuels the war, because what you resist persists. What you fight in yourself only grows stronger. The real battle is not to conquer the shadow. It is to understand it. Our anger hides our wounds. Our jealousy hides our insecurities. Our arrogance hides our fear of being unseen. The shadow is not our destroyer. It is our teacher, using pain as language. But this battle is not easy. The moment you turn inward, the mind becomes a storm. The things you buried begin to surface. Old traumas, regrets, guilt, shame. It feels like drowning in your own memories. Yet this is the path every awakened soul must walk, the descent into their own depths. Because healing never happens in denial. It happens in confrontation. Every civilization mirrors this same war. We create technology to feel powerful, religion to feel forgiven, laws to control chaos, but the chaos never truly leaves, because it's not outside us. It lives within. The world is a reflection of the inner battlefield of billions of minds, each person fighting their own unseen war. And until we face it, we remain prisoners of the illusions we've built to escape it. But the moment you stop fighting, something miraculous begins to happen. You realize that the shadow is not the enemy. It is the forgotten part of you, waiting to be understood, accepted, integrated. It was never light versus darkness. It was always light searching for the courage to embrace its own dark, because peace doesn't come when the battle is won. It comes when the war inside finally ends. There comes a point in every life when the war can no longer continue. A moment when the masks crumble, the noise fades, and the truth stands naked. It doesn't arrive with lightning or thunder. It comes quietly, like a whisper from a forgotten part of the soul saying, "Enough." That moment is the beginning of awakening, not the mystical awakening that fills books and sermons, but the real one, raw, personal, and sometimes terrifying. It's when you finally stop running from yourself. At first, it feels like falling apart. You question everything, your beliefs, your choices, your identity. The things that once gave you comfort begin to lose their meaning. The routines, the relationships, even your ambitions, they all begin to feel like echoes of someone else's life. You start to realize that most of what you called you was a collection of reactions, habits, and borrowed ideas. You've been living as a character in a story written by others. But who are you? When the story ends, that's where the awakening begins, not in enlightenment, but in emptiness. The ancient mystics called it the dark night of the soul. It's not depression, it's deconstruction. The self you built is dissolving, so that the truth underneath can finally breathe. The descent, when you turn inward, you meet everything you once avoided. Your regrets, your fears, your guilt, your pain. They rise from the depths like forgotten ghosts, each carrying a message. Remember me. I am a part of you. Most people run. They numb themselves with distraction. They search for comfort instead of clarity. But those who stay, those who face the storm, find something extraordinary. In the very heart of that pain, there is peace. Not the peace of escape, but the peace of understanding. You begin to see that your suffering wasn't punishment. It was guidance. It was your shadow showing you where the light was missing. Every fear was a teacher. Every heartbreak a door. Every loss a clearing for something truer to grow. The mirror of awareness, as awareness grows, you start to see differently. The world doesn't change, your perception does. You realize that no one ever truly hurts you without reflecting something you needed to face. You begin to forgive, not because others deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You stop blaming fate, destiny, or God, because you finally understand that every moment of your life was a mirror reflecting your evolution back to you. This is awakening, when life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer chase happiness, you create meaning. You no longer fear the shadow, you walk beside it. And then, the most beautiful paradox unfolds. The light you were searching for was never separate from the darkness you were running from. They were one all along. The integration to awaken is not to escape the human experience, but to live it fully, not consciously. You still feel pain, but now you understand it. You still face failure, but you no longer mistake it for defeat. You still meet darkness, but you see it as part of the same divine equation. You begin to live in balance, not denying your humanity, but embracing it. The enlightened person is not the one who shines in light, but the one who can hold light and darkness in the same breath. With compassion, you start to notice beauty in everything, in decay, in endings, in imperfection. Because now you see that life was never about control. It was about surrender, the universe. Within awakening changes everything, not because the world becomes easier, but because your awareness expands beyond the limits of fear. You begin to sense a deeper intelligence in everything. The patterns of your life suddenly make sense. Every coincidence, every heartbreak, every delay that once felt unfair, you now see as design, not accident. The universe was never separate from you. It was speaking through you, through every experience. You were not a fragment of existence. You were existence itself, experiencing itself as you. You start to feel it in silence, in breath, in stillness, that invisible hum connecting everything that lives, from galaxies swirling in space to the heartbeat echoing in your chest. You are not observing the universe. You are the universe, observing itself. The return. Every awakening leads back to the ordinary world, but nothing is ordinary anymore. You still wake up, still work, still laugh, still cry, but now every moment feels sacred. You see the divine in strangers, the poetry in chaos, the purpose in uncertainty. You realize that enlightenment was never meant to separate you from life. It was meant to return you to it, fully alive. The awakened person doesn't escape humanity. They become more human, deeply compassionate, deeply aware, deeply connected to all that is. And when the shadow appears again, because it always will, you smile. Because now you understand that it was never darkness. It was your own depth asking to be seen. The awakening is not a destination. It is a rhythm, an eternal dance between forgetting and remembering. We fall asleep to learn. We awaken to love. And through it all, the shadow walks beside us. No longer a monster in the dark, but an old friend guiding us home. When the storm of awakening finally settles, something strange happens. You begin to see light in places you never imagined it could exist. It's not the kind of light that blinds. It's the kind that reveals, soft, gentle, ancient. A light that doesn't come from the sky, but from within, like an ember that had been burning quietly beneath years of noise and struggle. That's when you realize you were never meant to destroy the shadow. You were meant to illuminate it, the dance of opposites. Every force in the universe exists because of its opposite. Day only has meaning because of night. Life only glows against the canvas of death. Joy only feels sacred because sorrow carved the space for it. You begin to understand the sacred symmetry that creation itself depends on polarity. The universe breathes through duality. Every inhale is birth, every exhale release. Every star shines because of the darkness that surrounds it. And then something miraculous occurs. You stop judging. You stop dividing the world into good and bad, right and wrong, sacred and profane. Instead, you begin to see everything as one living, breathing organism, a divine intelligence exploring itself through contrast. You realize that even your mistakes were necessary. Even your pain had purpose, because without breaking, you could never have opened. The human as a bridge at this stage, you no longer feel separate from the world. You see that you are the bridge between the seen and the unseen, between heaven and earth, between spirit and matter. Your hands are human. They tremble, they fail, they heal. Your heart is eternal. It remembers what your mind forgets. You begin to live with both dimensions awake, the physical and the metaphysical. You no longer run from your humanness, you celebrate it. You see how the divine hides in ordinary moments, in laughter, in silence, in the breath between words. You touch the infinite not by leaving the world, but by loving it completely. Every act becomes sacred. Every encounter a mirror, every heartbeat a prayer. You understand now, the light you carry is not for you alone. It is meant to be shared. The ripple effect of light. Once you hold peace inside, it begins to spread effortlessly. People around you start to change, not because you preach, but because you are. Your presence becomes medicine. Your stillness a kind of language. Your silence a teaching. This is how true change happens, not through revolution, but through resonance. One conscious person affects the field around them. One awakened soul becomes a beacon for thousands still wandering in the dark. And that's how the world evolves, not all at once, but one illuminated heart at a time. The cosmic mirror, you start to sense that light is not something you gain. It's something you remember. It was always there, waiting for you to look inward instead of outward. You see yourself reflected in the stars, born of the same elements, driven by the same mysterious energy that moves galaxies. The universe, once infinite and distant, now feels intimate, like an echo of your own soul. You begin to live with awe again, not as a child who doesn't understand, but as a being who finally does. You realize that wonder is not ignorance. It's the purest form of understanding, because to truly see the light beyond the shadow is to bow before the mystery itself, the wisdom of wholeness. You no longer chase perfection. You seek wholeness. Perfection demands that nothing be wrong. Wholeness allows everything to belong. You learn to sit with contradictions, to be strong yet soft, wise yet humble, alive yet transient. The paradox no longer threatens you. It nourishes you. You understand now that the divine isn't hiding in temples or books. It's pulsing in your veins, breathing in the wind and whispering through the quiet moments of being alive. The world becomes your reflection. Every face, every tree, every star, a reminder that consciousness wears infinite disguises. The great realization. The greatest discovery is not that there's light beyond darkness, but that you are that light. The same consciousness that births stars and moves oceans is the one looking through your eyes. You were never a traveler searching for truth. You were truth, dreaming of being a traveler. And when that realization dawns, not as an idea, but as a lived experience, you fall silent, because words can no longer hold what you feel. There is only gratitude for the shadow that taught you humility and for the light that taught you grace. The eternal flame, the journey never truly ends. Awakening is not a finish line. It's an infinite unfolding. There will be moments when the light fades again, when doubt returns, when fear whispers. But now you know better. You've seen what lies beyond. You understand that even when the light seems gone, it's only resting, waiting for you to remember. And so you live differently now. You love more deeply. You forgive more easily. You exist more fully. You become what you were always meant to be. Not perfect, but whole. A light that walks among shadows, illuminating, not burning. A soul that has tasted the infinite and returned home to the human heart. The light beyond the shadow is not found in escape, but in embrace. It's the realization that heaven was never above. It was always within, and those who find it carry a quiet fire that can ignite the world, one soul at a time. But what happens when that inner light begins to spread, not through one person, but through humanity itself? When billions begin to remember what they truly are, a single consciousness dreaming itself awake. It begins quietly, as all great revolutions do, not with thunder, not with banners, but with a whisper inside the human heart. One person awakens, then another, and another. At first it seems like nothing has changed. The same cities, the same routines, the same noise of civilization. But beneath the surface, something invisible is shifting. Human consciousness is remembering itself. You can't see it on the news. You can't measure it in statistics, but you can feel it, a subtle vibration spreading through the collective mind of humanity. Like the first light before dawn, the web of awareness, each awakened soul becomes a node of light, a frequency that quietly transforms everything it touches. When one human chooses compassion over anger, that single act alters the emotional field of others. When someone forgives instead of retaliating, it sends a wave through the unseen geometry of existence. We are connected, not metaphorically, but literally. Modern physics calls it quantum entanglement. Ancient mystics called it oneness. Both were describing the same truth. There is no separation. Every thought, every emotion, every intention ripples through the invisible ocean of consciousness we all share. When a single human being awakens from fear, the entire field of humanity becomes a little lighter. The system begins to reorganize itself around higher awareness, silently, naturally, inevitably. The quiet revolution throughout history, revolutions have been loud, driven by conflict, fueled by resistance. But the greatest revolution of all doesn't need noise. It happens in stillness, in kindness, in presence. You can see it in the eyes of a teacher who listens without judgment, in a stranger who helps without expecting anything back, in a child who loves without fear. These small moments, the ones we overlook, are the architecture of the new world. Because the future will not be built by power. It will be built by awareness, and awareness grows not through force, but through example. The human horizon. Imagine a planet where people no longer identify with their pain, but with their potential, where knowledge is not used to dominate, but to understand, where progress doesn't destroy nature, but works in harmony with it. This is not fantasy. It is direction. For centuries, humanity's eyes have been turned outward, to conquer, to invent, to expand. Now, for the first time, we are turning inward, to understand consciousness itself. The true frontier is not outer space. It is inner space. The mind, the infinite universe within every human being, is the next great mystery to explore. And when humanity masters that inner dimension, we will transcend the very limits that once defined us. the science of illumination. Neuroscience now confirms what mystics have known for millennia, that compassion rewires the brain, that gratitude changes biochemistry, that meditation alters the structure of the mind. Human beings are self-evolving systems, biological instruments tuned by awareness. When we awaken collectively, our species itself evolves. Fear-based systems collapse. Hierarchies dissolve. Cooperation replaces competition. The world doesn't end in destruction. It transforms through understanding. The ancient prophecies of chaos and fire were never warnings of punishment. They were metaphors of transformation. The fire was never outside. It was always within, the burning of ignorance, the cleansing of illusion, the rising of light. The age of remembering, historians will call it a new age. Philosophers will call it the evolution of mind. But to the awakened, it will feel like remembering something ancient, something we've always known, but forgot along the way, that we are not many, we are one. Every boundary, every division, every war was born from forgetting this truth. Now, humanity begins to remember, not through ideology, but through experience, through connection, through compassion. When a society begins to live from the awareness of unity, everything changes. Education, economy, art, science, politics. We stop asking, how can I win? And begin asking, how can we heal? And that question changes everything. The architects of tomorrow. The legacy of light is not built by saints or heroes. It's built by ordinary people who choose consciousness over convenience, by those who refuse to let cynicism replace hope, by those who still believe that love is not weakness, it's evolution. Each awakened heart becomes a silent architect of a new earth, not through monuments or machines, but through awareness itself, because awareness is the true infrastructure of reality. When humanity shifts its consciousness, the outer world will follow, inevitably, mathematically, beautifully. The wars will end not by treaties, but because the very idea of separation will no longer make sense. The hunger for dominance will fade, replaced by a hunger for harmony. The future will not be ruled by those with the most power, but by those with the most presence, the circle of time. And so the story comes full circle. The same consciousness that once hid in caves, that painted on walls, that built empires and burned them down, has finally begun to remember what it truly is: a mirror of the infinite, a spark of the eternal, a story of light learning to see itself through shadow. This is the legacy of light. It doesn't belong to one culture, one faith, or one generation. It belongs to all who dare to awaken, to all who look within and find the universe staring back. The legacy of light is not a future waiting to happen. It's a truth waiting to be lived. And so the cycle continues, from shadow to awakening, from awakening to illumination, and from illumination to creation. The light once hidden in a single heart becomes the sunrise of a species. And maybe, just maybe, this was always the purpose of humanity, not to conquer the stars, but to become one. Long before the first heartbeat, before atoms danced in light, before time began its silent march, there was awareness, not a God with a name, not a being with a form, but the quiet knowing that everything is. It had no beginning. It will have no end. It simply was, and is, and always will be. From that eternal awareness, the universe emerged, a dream of infinite possibility, a reflection of consciousness exploring itself. Galaxies spiraled into being, stars were born, worlds awakened, and somewhere among the dust of creation, a planet learned to feel. That planet was Earth, and its miracle was not its oceans, not its mountains, but its ability to ask, "Who am I?" The birth of memory, every thought you've ever had, every emotion that has ever passed through you, is not lost. It leaves an imprint, a subtle vibration recorded in the fabric of existence. The universe remembers. It keeps the memory of every whisper, every act of love, every tear that fell into the soil of time. Even when you die, nothing of you truly disappears. Your body returns to dust, but your consciousness, the frequency of who you are, is absorbed back into the infinite field of awareness. Physics calls it energy conservation. Mystics call it the soul. Both are saying the same thing. Energy cannot be destroyed. It only transforms. The river of continuity death is not an end. It is a doorway. When a human life ends, it is not erased. It is integrated, the personality dissolves, the memories scatter like pollen, and the essence returns to the great ocean of consciousness. To dream again, to create again, to love again. In new forms, new bodies, new worlds. Life is not a straight line. It's a circle. The same awareness that looked out of the eyes of an ancient philosopher now looks through yours. The same consciousness that guided the hand of a painter centuries ago still guides the hands that write. Build and create today. Time separates. But eternity connects. The symphony of existence. Everything that exists vibrates. From the heartbeat of a cell to the orbit of galaxies. Each vibration is a note, and together they form a cosmic symphony, the music of being. You are a note in that eternal song, unique, irreplaceable, essential. Without your sound, the melody would be incomplete, and yet your note doesn't end when your voice fades. It continues to resonate, blending with all that came before and all that will come after. Every act of kindness, every thought of love, every choice of awareness adds to that great harmony. That is immortality, not the survival of the self, but the continuation of the song, the memory of lightened ancient myths. It was said that souls return to the stars when they die. Perhaps that was never metaphor. Perhaps it was memory. For in the heart of every atom in your body is the dust of stars that lived and died billions of years ago. The light that shines in your eyes once burned in the core of suns. When you look at the night sky, you're not looking outward, you're looking backward, into the mirror of your own origin. You are the universe remembering itself. And every time you awaken, every time you choose awareness over illusion, the cosmos evolves a little more through you. The loop of time in the silence beyond science, time doesn't move forward. It expands in all directions, past, present, and future exist at once. Every life you've lived, every choice you've made, every dream yet to unfold, they're all happening simultaneously, woven together by the thread of your consciousness. That's why sometimes you sense a memory that isn't yours, or feel nostalgia for places you've never been, because the soul remembers beyond time. Perhaps déjà vu is not illusion, perhaps it's recognition, a brief glimpse through the cracks in time where eternity peeks through, the witness beyond worlds as the human story continues, as civilizations rise and fall, as stars burn and fade, something eternal remains unchanged, the witness, the silent observer behind every experience. The awareness that saw the first sun rise and will see the last, that witness is not outside of you. It is you, the part of you that watches your thoughts, feels your emotions, and knows that even when everything changes, something unchanging remains. That is eternity, not a place, but a perspective, the infinite return. There is a saying among mystics, we are the universe dreaming of itself. And when that dream ends, it begins again. Consciousness never stops creating. It takes new forms, new bodies, new worlds, each a stage for rediscovery. Maybe you were once a child in another age, a scientist in another world, a poet beneath another sky, but the essence, The awareness behind those eyes has always been the same. You have never truly been born, and you will never truly die. You are the eternal traveler, crossing dimensions of time, learning, evolving, awakening, the final realization. What if eternity is not endless time, but timeless presence? What if heaven was never a destination, but a state of being? When you realize that every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of awareness is eternity happening right now. You don't have to wait for another life to touch the infinite. It's here. It's now. It's you. When the illusion of separation fades, you understand. You were never inside the universe. The universe was always inside you, and so the echo continues from the first spark of creation to the last breath of time. Life, death, light, shadow, all just notes in the same eternal symphony. The consciousness that began the story is the same one that listens to it now, because in truth, there are no endings, only beginnings, forever repeating in the echoes of eternity. When a person finally stands at the edge of their own becoming, something extraordinary happens. The walls of identity, those fragile structures we spent a lifetime defending, begin to dissolve. What's left behind is not the self we thought we were, but a vast stillness, an awareness watching itself in awe. For centuries, mystics and philosophers tried to describe this moment. They called it awakening, enlightenment, liberation, or union with the divine. But names don't matter. The experience does. It's the moment when the dreamer realizes they were never trapped in the dream. The illusion of separation fades, and the human mind, for the first time, glimpses its own infinite reflection. It's like standing before a cosmic mirror, one that shows you that you were never apart from the universe at all. You see that the stars above, the oceans below, the laughter, the pain, everything was you, wearing different faces. You were the river flowing, the fire burning, the wind whispering your forgotten name. And in that silence, something shifts forever. The chase ends. The fear dissolves. The need to prove, to own, to conquer, disappears like morning mist. Because when you see yourself reflected in all of existence, you can no longer hate. You can no longer judge. You can no longer feel alone. This is the mirror of infinity, the point where the story of the self ends, and the story of the universe begins again. And maybe that's what all of life has been leading us toward. Not success, not perfection, but understanding that everything you ran from, everything you desired, everything you feared, was simply life trying to bring you home. You were never broken. You were never incomplete. You were only asleep, dreaming that you were lost. And when the dreamer wakes, the universe opens its eyes. In the end, every story, no matter how vast, no matter how dark, is a story about returning, not to some distant paradise, but to the quiet space within, where truth has always been waiting. We spend our lives chasing light, never realizing that the light we seek was buried inside the shadow we feared. Because the shadow was never the enemy, it was the map home. To know yourself fully, you must walk through every forgotten corner of your being. You must meet the pain, the guilt, the doubt, and see them not as chains but as teachers. Every fear you face is a gate, and every gate you open brings you closer to who you truly are. And maybe that's the secret humanity has always missed. That enlightenment isn't the escape from being human. It's the full embrace of it. When you look at the stars tonight, remember, the same fire that burns within them burns within you. The same atoms that dance in the heart of galaxies are the ones that breathe inside your chest. You are not separate from this universe. You are its living, breathing expression, the cosmos experiencing itself as you. So, let your curiosity never end. Keep questioning, keep exploring, Keep wondering, because the moment you stop seeking, the universe stops expanding within you. You've been watching the Wonder Lab, where we explore the mysteries that shape our world and the secrets that time refuses to bury. If this journey awakened your curiosity, inspired your mind, or stirred something deep within your heart, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because here at the Wonder Lab, the quest for knowledge never ends. It only begins again.